I'm going to start with the poem which was the genesis of this short collection. My parents' admissions. I leant too close, inhaled it from my patient. I breathed it in at seminary prayers. We met at a dance, a cough that failed to leave, a wheeze. I hacked into my handkerchief. We met at a dance. I recognized those caverns on my x-ray. I hoped for streptomycin, wonder drug. We met at a dance. Instead, a state-run sanatorium, another green hill far away. We met at a dance. They collapsed my lung to let it rest. They left me with a dorsal scar. We met at a dance. We ignored the morgue discreetly out the back. A waltz supplied light exercise. We met at a dance. My parents were a part of the huge wave of emigration from Ireland in the 50s and 60s. My mum came to London to train as a nurse. My dad had a vocation and joined a seminary to train as a Catholic priest. And they each contracted tuberculosis and were sent to an NHS sanatorium near Robertsbridge in East Sussex. And that is where they met. But they didn't tell us this, tell their children this until they retired. TB is a disease of poverty. It often thrives in emigrant communities, in overcrowded housing, and there can be a great deal of shame attached to acknowledging it as an illness. So whenever we asked as children where they'd met, they'd say, well, you know, actually now, they met at a dance. Across the centuries, though, TB's attracted and evoked kind of different reactions. It killed so many people very young. Writers like Keats at 25, Emily Bronte, I think was 30. Catherine Mansfield was 34. And there used to be, I guess, a kind of allure attached to the consumptive, kind of bright-eyed and burning up their youth, skinny, flushed. The old term for TB was phthisis. This is what? A lisp, as if the tongue has lost its nerve, grown to fill the mouth. This is perhaps an ivied word, half in love with easeful, but defies any glamorous decline, any refining of the body, though this is, it's true, a wasting of the flesh, a shrinking back to bone. This is not Camille, nor Violetta, no Marguerite, nor any flower, but safflower, madder, walnut husk, a foraging for hope. This is a shroud for silence, an erotics of shame, the stigma of a lover named Blauer Heinrich, a sputum flask in cobalt glass, a whisper from the whistling chest, a liquefaction of the lung. This is a burning as the drowning starts. This has acquired a new expression. This is multi-drug resistant. This remains almost unspeakable. As I kind of indicate at the end there, TB is still very much present and it exacts an absolutely horrific toll. In 2020, 1.5 million people globally died from TB, and that compared to COVID, first year of COVID, 1.8 million. So TB is the second most infectious killer. And I think that our experience, or all of our experience of the last 2 years, has made us kind of consciously value the health of our lungs in a way we might not have before. So my next two poems are both written at the start of the pandemic, and they remind me now That's for people who are still needing to shield, but lockdown has never gone away. Waking to the news. There is a kind of pain called exquisite, a kind of curiosity called morbid. To touch the wound is to probe the border between sense and damage, to test where the blunting is felt. There is a kind of waking when the head's night-long weight presses ear to sheet, and each amplifying curve expands into bruise. April inhalations. Patternless days, the park's winnowing my lockdown. Apple blossom spirals following the lockdown. Leaflets, singing green, shield each apple bud from frost or airborne blight blowing in the lockdown. The count is rising, the pollen and the bodies. Each news report's a fractal shadowing the lockdown. Slower global rhythms sound a single tone, a wasp tasked with surveillance, yellowing the lockdown. Today, I miss the blackbird, mess of feathers, silent nest. Which animals are equal undergoing lockdown? Even language seems infected. This little suffix owl, viral, exponential, is exploding in the lockdown. To name myself my love would carve the page like stone, a petal-blown memorial, the harrowing of the lockdown. A kind of treatment which is sometimes given to TB patients and sometimes given to COVID patients is admission to a negative pressure room. In Violet. Violet isolates herself or is isolated, tethered anchorite. The safest form of isolation is a negative pressure room, where the air pressure inside is lower than outside the door. Her zephyrs blow in but not out quite silently, and she could almost forget that a mechanism creates this effect. The mechanism is set in an outer wall, tracheotomy style. Violet seems to bloom in this snare, however austere the hospital pillow, however blank the decor, however underripe the heaped bowl of mirabelles. Rocking gently, she oscillates from solitaire to sermon, practices the dialect. The air does not feel any thinner inside, and indeed, Violet is told that she will find it no different at all. At intervals, she swallows clear soup. She is told that she cannot have a fan, for the air pressure in the room could be affected and blow infection under the door. Influx or reflux, the precepts are unclear. Can she presume to jut her lip, exhale hard enough to push her fringe from her eyes? Each out-breath hardens to an upswept plume, a blown glass prayer. Violet interleaves tissue between each breakable breath, closets her whispers, preserves some positive evidence. So I'll read two more poems. The first is about another writer who suffered from TB, though it didn't kill him. That was a laundry truck. Roland Barthes, who is perhaps best known for his essay, The Death of the Author. This poem is called Resurrecting the Author. For Barthes, the lung was a stupid organ, lights for cats, fit only as offal, for it swells but gets no erection. Let me unfold a lung and begin. Sans the fuel of the breath, what use is a fine-grained larynx? Plus that epithet, stupid. Are you 3 years old, Roland? Stamping, declaring you were the man. I'm on the back foot with you. No theoretician. So allow me my cursory skimming, my wiki, which I'd say you'd adore, where truth lies with the editing reader. Every text is eternally written here and now. This matter of breath, but you signal the death of all but the words. Want me to discard biographical context, to interpret the language alone. But this reader absorbs and cannot forget your tubercular scars, your fatherlessness, and reads into your throwaway lines a great letting down of unreliable organs, vulnerable flesh. And I'll finish with a poem which touches on the miracle of our lungs and of the first breath which we take. This one is for my 3 sons. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening this evening. The voyage out. After your slow deliberation, your incremental gathering of pace, after immersed practice, drawing watery breaths, opening your eyes on red, dark, after inward concentration on the growth of each pleated, delicate structure, lungs folded flat, voice box airtight, each gain propelled by the umbilical pump, propelling oxygen from belly to belly. After all this, your chest is compressed by the tunnel which leads into cold blue light. And out of the darkness, you eventually speed. And all in one breath, you cry out the switch from water to land and plunge into air. The horizon between your sea and the sky, now available to your salt-rinsed eyes. Thank you.